Welcome, everybody. Ted Huntington with another interview of a fabulous female author. This interview is with Alisha Guenzel. I'm going to post links to all of her books underneath this video, as well as a link to Women's Rights Publishing and Author Services, the sponsor of all these videos. And as I say all the time, please support these videos by becoming a Patreon patron. Alisha Guenzel is a creator of romance. Although she's always shown an interest in writing, it wasn't until 2013 that she published her first book, Unspoken Dreams, a soft romance about first love and the bond between a child that was created through that love. She followed that book with The McGregor Legacy, a family drama about horse trainers and the sins that they hide underneath their hats. That's an interesting image. The McGregor Legacy is a 4-book series that she's yet to complete. Alisha has also published Jason's Duty, a prequel to the McGregor Legacy series, as well as Dream Lover, which will eventually be part of her 3-book installment, The Forbidden Attraction. Dream Lover and The Forbidden Attraction are for, as they say, mature audiences. Alisha weaves strong life lessons into all of her stories. When Alisha is not writing, she's a mother and works as a call representative. Her favorite saying is, "Don't sweat the small stuff, for life is too short to cry." And I will try to not make you cry, Alisha. As I said, I'm going to post links to all of her books underneath the video. Welcome, Alisha Guenzel.
Thank you so much for having me.
So first question, chicken or the egg? Do you first determine the life lesson you want to convey in your book or the story?
I would say the story, because I mainly listen to the characters that basically tell me what their story is going to be about, and I let it unravel.
And then at what point does the lesson come to be?
I would say in about the middle to the climax of the story. Sometimes the climax can be early on or prolonged, like in my McGregor Legacies, the first book, McGregor Sins. People really don't see what the lesson is until maybe halfway through the book.
Do they ever change? Like once you finish the book, you go, I think really the lesson should be this, and then maybe you go back and make some adjustments.
Oh yeah, all the time, because like my Forbidden Attraction book it was written like 4 times with 4 drafts before the real story was told. And that's like part of my writing style, is that by the 4th draft is mainly, even though there's so many drafts, it's like everything else is like the foundation, but like the 4th draft, sometimes the characters play nice and just let me tell the story, but other days they're like, no, this is what I really want you to say.
Is that common for most of your books, that you go through so many iterations? Obviously, for almost every writer, the editing process is pretty intense, and there's a lot of different steps to that, but you have completely different drafts that you completely edit your books as you go.
Oh yes, and I'm very old school. I'm an independent author, which is nice sometimes, but not always nice, because I have to basically do everything. And although I do have a wonderful promotion agency that I work with, Partners in Crime, which helped me with my editing and my promoting, along with formatting. Until this past year, I was doing everything on my own, and I would actually print out the story and edit by hand. And because even though I do use a computer, I get more out of handwriting and journaling. And like when I first started, I would have this huge 2-inch binder with computer paper and scribbles everywhere. And I would find the common mistakes, because as much as the most beautiful manuscript that you read is on the shelf, there's a lot of mistakes that happen. And I mean, I would be considered, I guess, a typewriter kind of writer, because that's how I make the best story, because I'm very old school.
That is old school. You don't hear that very often, that somebody prints out the entire manuscript and gets out their red pen and makes teacher type
Oh
corrections
yeah.
in it.
Like, I'm surprised I still have my printer, because normally I go through like at least 5 or 3 printers a year. And I would I would get yelled at all the time. And they're like, "Why are you putting so much money into a printer?" But to me, it's hands-on, and like, you feel more for the characters, and you see more. And like, I'm one of those writers that a lot of the stories come to me in dreams. And so then I write it out as the foundation, and then I go in and I like to call it my little bridges that connect to my big bridges. And that's what makes the bigger story.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Dreams. A lot of writers, they have a tape recorder, but maybe not these days, a tape recorder, probably their phone, just use their phone. They wake up and have this dream and like, oh, that has to be a story.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just like before McGregor Sins is what it is today, it was actually supposed to be a 3-book series. So if anyone out there has ever gotten the original cover of Jason's Duty, it would say book 1 of 3 books of the McGregor legacy. And um so when I first wrote the section where Jude has the point of view, it came to me entirely in a dream. I was sleeping, and like, I saw the entire like a movie, really. And it's funny because my fans that have read the entire series, they're like, "We're just waiting for Hallmark to pick it up," and I'm just like, I'm good, but I'm not that good.
So you have multiple series going at the same time. Talk about that process. How do you have these series laid out all beforehand?
Um, I do. And when I have them all planned out in my head, that's when the characters tell me, this is not where it should go. Like, Forbidden Attraction does have a second book in place of after the fact, but I actually, after I I started um really thinking about the story itself, because it's about 2 women who went to this open bar. I mean, anyone could go ahead and come, whether, and this is my graphic slash erotica romance, anyone from bi, gay, trans, they were all welcome. And an editor slash writer went there, which was Samantha, for a nightcap, and she ends up meeting the love of her life. This was a year-long project, and by the end of it, I was able to combine all 3 books and make one huge story. And right now I'm working on a project which is going to be cool, because it's going to involve multiple authors that will be doing their own publication, but it'll be part of a huge anthology. And so the story I'm working on between the McGregor legacy is called Disco Rainbow, and it's actually it's a story pinpointed around the bartender Jax, because after people started reading Forbidden Attraction, they're like, now we want to see Jax more. And so I'm like, okay. So then I start thinking about it, and so right now I'm working on draft 1 of that.
Well, it sounds like you've done a really nice job building your fan base. Do you feel like doing the book series really helps to build the fan base because they can continuously follow your characters?
I think so. And I think it has helped them to stick around because I actually have fans that started following me after Jason's duty who told me that we don't want the series to end. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like prolonging the inevitable, because book 4 will be the conclusion of the brothers Jason, Jude, and Jesse. And I know I just said that in the wrong order because Jason's older and Jesse's the middle and Jude's the youngest.
Someone's
Although
going
they
to
all,
call you on it.
yeah, exactly. So I have to verify that is the order. Although they act different in order because sometimes Jude acts like the older one. But uh and so I actually started thinking after the 4th book, they have kids in the story. So I'm going to open up a new series that revolves around their descendants. So even though it's not going to be the same story, it'll at least have familiar characters to help ease the blow of the end of the McGregor legacy.
You don't want to be like Annie Wilkes in Misery, where
Exactly.
yeah, she's so upset because the character died. So we were talking a minute ago about the fact that you are primarily a romance writer, but you have a lot of male fans. So how do you write romance so that it appeals to both women and men?
I think it's the emotion. And like for Forbidden Attraction, it's very graphic, it's very seductive, and even people who don't go into that genre, they actually read a chapter or two where then they were out getting the book so they could put a fan on it and read it. But I think it has to do with how I capture the characters emotion of it all, because when people want to read, they're trying to escape. But at the same time, I learned on really early in my career, you can't write such a fictional book that it's not believable. And so what I do is I tie in real emotions with fictional stories. And like the love that Vanessa and Samantha have for each other and the sacrifices that they both have made, and the sex is just the juicy stuff. I actually had a 5-star review. The sex was just a perk. Like, hey, that's not what I was really going for, but great. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, isn't it always?
It was great. I mean, because people are always looking for that kind of passion. The passion that there is no boundary. And like even with the McGregor legacy, the characters are torn between one character to another character, but their morality, because where the McGregor legacy differs from Forbidden Attraction, is there's so much morality, and I put a lot of my own faith into the McGregor legacy that people could just feel, because even though Forbidden Attraction is a great story, there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of uncharted territory that some authors don't like to play with because they don't know how it's going to be handled. The McGregor legacy has to do with the days of yes ma'am, no ma'am, thank you ma'am, where you live by a code, you stick by your family, and you stick with the obligation whether you like it or not. And that's what like a lot of my fans grew to love, that despite the fiction, it brought a sense of history. And so it's like one of my biggest fans, Jody L. Moore, who's stuck by me, and she actually told me, Alicia, you cannot end this series. That's when I started thinking about the second series, because I don't want to break her heart. And like, even though we are, thank God we are in like the upscale of COVID, I was actually planning on getting McGregor Legacy masks just to appease her so she could wear it, you know?
Oh,
But I mean, it's just one of those things where even though my books are fiction with a little taste of reality, like if anyone reads the McGregor Legacy, McGregor Sins actually has horse characters in it. And the first three horses, uh, Star, um, and Lexi. Oh my goodness, I can't. Well, the first three horses has been a while. Um, uh, they were all based on horses that I used to have in New Mexico. And like some of the scenes where one of the brothers goes ahead and falls off, and his horse that he'd been training actually uh licked his neck to make sure he was okay. My paint Peanut, actually, I was riding her one day, and she spooked, and she bucked me off into some barbed wire fence, and she, instead of running off, she actually licked my neck to make
no.
sure I was still alive, and which I was. I mean, here I am today. But I mean, so I incorporate parts of my everyday life. Now, Forbidden Attraction, for the record, is fiction. Whoever reads it after this, it's fiction.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. So something happened in 2013. You had an epiphany or something, a lightning bolt hit. You became a writer. What happened in 2013 that made you go, I'm going to be a writer now?
I actually had a friend who had faith in me, who was like, they read bits and pieces. Now, mind you, he's the only man who has never really read my entire book through, because he's a sailor and he couldn't stomach the romance. But the stuff he did read, he's like, this is really good. And you really need to publish it, because actually and it's so funny because all these stories, for the exception of Forbidden Attraction, have all been stories that I've written since I was 8. Like the McGregor Legacy, and I'm going to go ahead and age myself, was written on a 1980s typewriter, and it was 2 pages. It was called Cowboy Tango, and Jason and Haley have been alive since the 80s.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's very
Yeah.
cool.
And Unspoken Dreams came from when I was in high school, and I had this best friend from the time I was 5 until junior high to high school. And I was trying to work out my feelings of not being able to be friends with him anymore. And Unspoken Dreams was born. And I added the autism because my oldest son is autistic. And so when I was with a publishing house, they took me because of the autistic character. And that was like one of my best books because of the fact that at the time, autism was such the high and so new back then, that when parents read it, especially the parents that had children on the spectrum, they were like, this is a writer who knows what we go through.
Wow, that's important. Yeah.
And
Good for
so,
you.
and you know, even though yes, one day I want to be a bestseller, if I can get reviews like that,
It's
or
worth it.
even, it's worth it, you know.
Right.
I mean, and because, and I'm also, and this is like on the back burner because I have so many projects in my head, but I want to write a uplifting, not really self-help, but a fictional book that has got like how to survive teenage years and life after the fact with autism and ADHD. because I mean, both my kids have special needs. And every time we go somewhere, they're like, you really need to write a book. And so I'm trying to play with the idea of wrapping my head, how would I do it correctly? Because I think it would be really helpful to the parents that are just beginning their journey with special needs.
Yeah, that sounds like a great project. Also, it points to the fact that you should write what you know. That's what everybody says,
Exactly.
write what you know, and it paid off for you. And stalking you, I noticed that you're on a lot of social media platforms, Facebook, of course, but you're on Goodreads, Pinterest, you're on YouTube, LinkedIn. What do you find works best for you, and how do you make it work?
Um, I would say over the years, Facebook. I mean, it depends on how you maneuver it. Um, I have yet to conquer going over that hump of making myself known to the point where I'm Danielle Steele, where they just pick the book up in the store. But I have people looking at my things, and the biggest thing is catching the eye. Like when I was first published, people thought I was crazy. And I used to get like banned a lot on Facebook because I would go click, click, click. And I even like after my debut book, and I didn't understand like you could actually get banned for posting too much.
Mhm.
And like I went and posted to, I can't remember the name of the group, but I posted like 3 or 4 times that day in one group. And one author's like, we are so tired of unspoken dreams. And I'm like, what? But I did that for 3 to 6 months before the release. And until I became an independent author, I depended on a lot of people to make covers and stuff like that. And so even despite that, um, the publishing house did the best that they could for a 1 day notice for the cover, I was still selling a lot in 1 month because I was promoting like 8 hours a day. And because that, and I was doing it on Facebook, and that was it because that's all I knew at the time. Because I've learned a lot since 2013.
Well, Facebook and social media has changed a lot since 2013 as well. So
Oh yeah.
even the groups weren't even were they even around back then?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just like we used to have pages, and like one of the things that I've had to get used to, and again, I'm going to date myself, is my author page has turned into an account. And so I'm having to remember, okay, I need to go over to my author page
Hmm.
and post, because before I was just used to posting in one spot and then spreading everything. Now it's like, but I've noticed since I've been able to like get Shutterstruck and actually get really good images and pulling, like I'll do taglines on my promotional ends of the teasers, is I'll make because I have Corel, and I'll go in and I'll make a teaser with Corel, and I'll actually envision a scene from the book and pull a line or two. And like some of my fans that have read the book, they're like, we remember this scene. And I'm like, and that's what I want, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so much great advice. We could probably go on for a lot longer, but unfortunately, we're coming to an end.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No, no. Like I said, a lot of great information. Alisha Guenzel, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.